Hello, my name is Jeannie Harris and today I will be presenting on the topic of filter bubbles and echo chambers. I will be examining the evidence for the existence of these concepts and ultimately arguing that despite filter bubbles and echo chambers being persuasive concepts, they do not have a negative impact on how individuals form their social and political opinions. Despite being widely used in mainstream media discourses, there is a lack of understanding about what echo chambers and filter bubbles actually are. In 2001, Cass Sunstein wrote a book called The Echo Chamber, in which he coined the term to argue that democracy cannot function properly if people are not exposed to unsought, unanticipated, and even unwanted exposures to diverse topics, people, and ideas. In 2017, Sunstein then updated his work to focus again on the dangers of echo chambers, but this time specifically in the context of social media. He says, "We are living in different political universes." Echo chambers, according to Sunstein, are broadly understood to be when people deliberately seek out information that reinforces their social and political perspectives. Sunstein argues that an echo chamber is dangerous when individuals are not exposed at all to different opinions or ideas to their own. Sunstein's definition of echo chambers is still fairly broad and doesn't give the reader a concrete understanding of the term. In 2011, Eli Pariser, an American tech entrepreneur, wrote a book called The Filter Bubble: What the Internet is Hiding from You. In his book and his TED Talk, Pariser warns of the dangers of technology and the algorithms used to personalize our media content. He claims that by the constant filtering and personalization of content, individuals will become trapped in a unique universe of information, which Pariser calls a filter bubble. The fear is that by constantly engaging with the same ideological media content, the algorithm reinforces that content that you see, so that you never come across information that challenges your worldview. He says they are prediction engines, constantly creating and refining a theory of who you are, what you'll do and want next. Pariser claims that this filter bubble will fundamentally alter the way we encounter new information and ideas. Axel Bruns, in his book Are Filter Bubbles Real?, says that both Sunstein and Pariser appear to be less concerned with actual definitions than they are of outlining the negative effects of filter bubbles and echo chambers on society. Focusing on the negative impacts of these concepts is also problematic, because it has meant that these terms have become widely accepted explanations for increasing political fragmentation and polarization across the globe, without actual empirical evidence to support their claims. In mainstream media and in scholarly research, the terms filter bubble and echo chambers are often discussed in the context of politics and debates around democracy. Filter bubbles and echo chambers are often used as scapegoats to explain the increasing political divide across the globe. The election of Donald Trump, Brexit in the UK, anti-vaccination movements, and the continued divided debate around climate change are often examples of the increasing danger of filter bubbles and echo chambers. The fear is they are having a negative impact on the way individuals form their social and political opinions, thereby creating enclosed and isolated communities. Bruns says that part of the reason these terms have gained such popularity is because they are commonsensical metaphors. This means these concepts sound reasonable and provide tidy explanations for the increasing political polarization across the globe. In this presentation, I will explore how these terms have not been defined properly, that the majority of studies do not take into consideration the complex and diverse contemporary media landscape, and that these concepts have been over-politicized and studied primarily in political contexts. Therefore, the acceptance of these terms is problematic because despite their widespread usage in media discourses, there is a distinct lack of empirical and persuasive data-based evidence to prove that filter bubbles and echo chambers are having a negative impact on society, or that they even exist. In various studies, Twitter has been used to analyse the existence of filter bubbles and echo chambers and the resulting political polarisation. In the article, Political Discourse on Social Media, Garamella and others examined the degree to which echo chambers exist and are structured on Twitter. They found that politically contentious topics were more likely to result in political echo chambers than non-political content. Himmelbaum and others in the article Birds of a Feather Tweet Together found some evidence of echo chambers, or what they call clusters of highly connected users. They found evidence that political topics are highly partisan and that political content was overall confined to like-minded clusters of users. In the article Political Polarization on Twitter, Michael Konova found in his analysis of data that political discourse remains highly partisan. Despite interactions from opposing sides of the political debate, political segregation persists. Barbara, in tweeting from left to right, noticed that some political topics could resemble an echo chamber, but that these chambers were limited. Barbara also found that previous studies might have overestimated the ideological segregation on Twitter and social media. They found that individuals do receive information from diverse ideological sources, showing that the communication structures on Twitter are flexible and diverse. In contrast, the following articles find little to no empirical evidence of echo chambers and filter bubbles. In 2015, Baxke, Messing and Adamic's study of Facebook users found that most information filtering is the result of homophily, in the sense that Facebook users have significantly more friends with a political orientation similar to their own. And they also found that the newsfeed is predominantly determined by the individual's choices, than by the algorithm itself. Flaxman, Gall and Rowell in their article Filter Bubbles, Echo Chambers and Online News Consumption found in their study that there is some ideological segregation in news found from social media or web search engines, but that these channels also provide exposure to opposing perspectives. Acknowledging that while they had found evidence for both sides of the debate, the effects of filter bubbles and echo chambers were relatively modest. Heim, in the article Burst of the Filter Bubble, found that the filter bubble phenomenon is likely overestimated in the algorithmic personalization within Google News. Nishwatai and Lewis find similar results to Heim in their analysis that Google News is highly concentrated, empowering a handful of prominent outlets and marginalising others, and that similar news sources were recommended to both liberal and conservative users. Sudovine, Borgias and others in their article, Should We Worry About Filter Bubbles, review the empirical evidence for the theory that personalisation, communication, is putting individuals in filter bubbles. And they ultimately conclude that the effects of personalisation of media content on people in society is limited and should not be a cause for concern. Dubois and Blank examined the relationship between political interest and media diversity and the likelihood of being caught in an echo chamber. Although they do show in their study that about 8% of people who reported a lack of political interest in media diversity could potentially find themselves in an echo chamber, they say that the nature of our contemporary high-choice media environment means that it would be difficult for an individual to enclose themselves fully in an echo chamber, and that there is little evidence of an echo chamber overall. Axel Brunn's 2017 paper, Echo Chamber, What Echo Chamber? Reviewing the Evidence, analyses the Australian Twitter sphere and finds that within his dataset there was only very limited tendencies towards the emergence of echo chambers and filter bubbles. Although Bruns notes that there is a formation of clusters, he doesn't see these as echo chambers, because these clusters do not exist to the exclusion of others. I have now provided evidence which supports both sides of the echo chamber and filter bubble theories. Many of these articles find limited evidence, conflicting evidence, or no evidence at all that filter bubbles and echo chambers exist. There are now a couple of other factors which I think are important to consider in this debate, and which prove that all articles I have provided are to some degree flawed. Although the terms echo chamber and filter bubble are highly evocative metaphors, and despite Sunstein and Parise's compelling and persuasive rhetoric, these terms remain largely undefined. This is problematic, for how can scholars set out to prove or disprove the existence of echo chambers and filter bubbles if there's not a widely accepted, scholarly and measurable definition? Dubois and Blank find that in previous scholarly work, the measurement of echo chambers has been inconsistent and insufficient. For how do you measure if an individual is in an echo chamber if you haven't got an authoritative definition to measure it by? In his book, Bruns also finds the lack of definition problematic. Bruns creates his own definitions of these terms, moving past simplistic terms to focus on networks of connection and networks of communication. He moves beyond a simple binary assessment. and towards the measurability of chamberness or bubbleness. Interestingly, both Sunstein and Pariser use the term universe as a way to explain their concepts. But I would agree with Bruns that it is important to be able to measure what actually constitutes chamberness or bubbleness. For to what degree is or could someone be caught in an echo chamber or filter bubble? This is an important question to consider. For are we to imagine that an individual's whole media landscape is an echo chamber, or perhaps a particular social media platform like Facebook or Twitter, or a Facebook page or a Facebook group, or even a Twitter hashtag? Another thing to consider is that the overwhelming discourse surrounding filter bubbles and echo chambers is situated in a political context. Bruns, Dubois and Blank, Dominic Spohr, Moller and Hellberger, Nelson and Webster, and many others all acknowledge that filter bubbles and echo chambers are commonly linked with rapid social and political changes, particularly Brexit and the election of Donald Trump. These terms are being used predominantly in a political context, and both Sunstein and Pariser particularly warn of the dangers to democracy. In Beyond the Filter Bubble, Moller and Hellberger define filter bubble as an algorithmic reduction on ideological diversity in a binary system of politically left and politically right in the US-American context. Moller and Hellberger also note that many of the studies into filter bubbles and echo chambers are situated in an American context, and that they provide different results to studies done in Europe. Bruns says that even if we can prove echo chambers and filter bubbles exist, we should still not assume that they necessarily have a negative impact on society and democracy, because they are really only problematic for politically incendiary topics and for highly diverging perspectives. A significant problem with studies that claim the existence of echo chambers and filter bubbles is that they often focus on single-platform social media, like Twitter. Dubois and Blank acknowledge in their article that when considering the potential consequences of echo chambers and filter bubbles, it is important to consider the whole media environment. Our contemporary media landscape is diverse and complex. Studies that claim the existence of echo chambers and filter bubbles, but only study single-platform media sites, are inherently flawed. Although there does need to be better measurable definitions of these concepts, the contemporary media landscape is so diverse that it would be very difficult to only use one platform to consume media content. It is also very important to consider the offline transfer of information. For example, communication with friends and family, radio and television, and print media. Zudovine Borgias writes that no one can exist in an absolute bubble, and even if they were likely to be caught in an echo chamber on a social media site, that doesn't take into consideration their broader consumption of media, for it would be difficult for anyone to live in an absolute information cocoon. In conclusion, there are many flaws in the filter bubble and echo chamber theories, many of which I do not have time to discuss in this presentation. However, there are a few points I would like to end on. Firstly, Pariser and Sunstein have used compelling negative rhetoric to enhance their arguments for the filter bubble and echo chamber theories. Pariser in particular focuses in on the idea of moral panic. At one point he claims that the algorithms that orchestrate our ads are starting to orchestrate our lives. But as Bruns and Zudovine Borgias write, algorithms are actually not yet as sophisticated as we would like to imagine, for they are going to be as flawed as the humans who created them. And Moller and Hellberger aptly write that a real risk of the reigning filter bubble rhetoric is the development of ill-conceived prejudices against digital technologies that help to sort and order online information. It is problematic to create a culture of fear around the very technologies that have and continue to shape our lives. Bruns, Moller and Hellberger, Zudovine Borgias and others all conclude their scholarly work by stating that there really is no empirical evidence to support the existence of filter bubbles and echo chambers, and that the scientific evidence that does exist is scarce and riddled with methodological challenges. Bruns' book, which was published in 2019, says that the research we have encountered shows simply no empirical evidence for these information cocoons in their absolute definitions, especially in a complex, multi-platform environment. Although filter bubbles and echo chambers have become a common way to explain the rising problems of fragmented social and political discourse in society, I have argued that there is no compelling evidence that suggests that in a diverse and high-choice media landscape, people could become trapped in specific cocoons of information, completely cut off from content with differing ideological opinions. Despite the lack of evidence, it would be prudent to continue to monitor the effects of filter bubbles and echo chambers because of the rapid advancements in media technologies. Thank you.